I have throughout my life worried about different things about my appearance. I'm not tall. I don't have long legs. I have this hair that I cannot control. I have, I don't know, but I certainly, like I said, I don't think I'm immune from these sorts of things. I think you get to a point in life where you need to be objective, and you start to be more objective, and it starts to matter less as you get older, for sure. But when you're a young woman, in my experience, it tends to be more of an issue. I think we all go through that phase in adolescence where we sort of we start to like members of the other sex, and we try and do things to make ourselves appear attractive, that kind of thing. But I didn't realize, I think for myself, until I was probably in my early to mid 20s, that men actually found me attractive, and it was somewhat empowering to know that was real. I could walk into a room and men could look at me. I mean, not that I was the center of attention or anything like that, but there would be eyes on me. And I think I made a lot of poor decisions about relationships because of that. And in fact, I think when I met Steph, in my 30s, I was tired of being chosen by a man, objectified, and I didn't want to enter into a relationship because somebody found me attractive. I wanted somebody actually to want to be in a relationship with me because they liked who I am rather than what I look like. When I was younger and I was dating, it was more about having fun and going out and doing those kinds of things. And again, as I got older and I was looking for a more serious relationship, long-term committed relationship, I was starting to get interested in all these things. Of course, it wasn't until I did some work on myself and really learned, to accept myself and like myself. And again, that's an ongoing process that never ends, I don't think, for anybody, because we're always constantly evolving. But as I began to develop more confidence in myself, then I was able to ask for more things from the men that I was dating.
Before we met, Christina had spent quite some time working on herself in the way that I had as well. Christina didn't go through therapy in the way that I did, but you'd spent about 18 months to 2 years really just working on figuring out what had gone wrong in your past relationships, what it is that you wanted, what did you have to bring to the table. And I think all of that helped you be a lot more open when we got together.
Yeah, I really, because I had struggled with a previous relationship, and I was... I felt that sort of self-pity that I think a lot of, I'm going to not just say women, but men and women feel when a relationship ends. Like, why doesn't that person want me? I must not be good enough. Maybe I'm not pretty enough. Maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I'm not cultured enough, or whatever. And I really had to sort of look inward and work through a lot of those issues within myself to recognize once again that there were things that it wasn't, of course there were things that I was bringing to that relationship that caused it to go sour. And thank God it did. But also to not sort of put the blame on me and bring myself to a point where I was the sole cause and the reason for the rejection. When I was really, tired of being objectified, I really just wanted someone to get to know me and find out who I am and like me for me rather than, oh, you're hot kind of thing. And, I, like everybody else, I had to go through a phase, and I had to go through this sort of exploration, and I had to get to a point where I liked myself enough, and I knew that I had something more than just my sexuality to offer. I had to be confident about that before I was ready to sort of test it out and find out if there was somebody out there who would actually like me for me. But frankly, what I was really interested in, again, was somebody who could have a conversation, and not about superficial things like I went there and I did this and I saw that and somebody told me this, but about ideas, somebody who could actually discuss, somebody who could actually say the word psychology. I actually dated somebody who couldn't pronounce
nuclear.
Yeah, exactly. Someone who's intelligent, someone who can hold a conversation, someone who has introspection, someone who has curiosity. Those were the things that were important for me in choosing whether or not I was going to go out on a date with them. For me, I wanted somebody who could be my best friend, that I can, really trust, that I could share things with, that I could open up to and feel vulnerable with, and know that I wasn't going to be shamed or humiliated, and someone that I could also have fun with, someone that wasn't always so serious all the time, but and we all know Steph's sense of humor, and Steph will tell you we played volleyball. And that's how we met. We met on a volleyball league, and I literally was wearing the baggiest track pants and the baggiest t-shirts on the court, and in fact in the entire league, because I didn't want someone to look at me and say, oh, I want to be with this woman because of her figure. I certainly wasn't there to meet anyone specifically. I was there for recreational purposes, but I certainly wanted to be liked for me and not for my appearance.
And I must say that once I did actually figure out that Christina was a woman, no, she was like wearing a pup tent. It's true. But then once I realized that when she jumped up and down, it wasn't all in sync, that changed quite a lot for me. We weren't physically strongly attracted to each other when we first met or saw each other. I was me and she was in this pup tent, so it was a little tough. I actually thought she was some extremist burqist. She was wearing some sort of extreme Muslim burqa, which of course did take things down a little bit. Or I thought she was a summer fate. But we got to know each other more at a personal level. We certainly, always loved conversing with each other. And after our first date, we were pretty much together every day, right?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, what happened for us was that we were playing on the same volleyball team, and we had maybe had played 2 or 3 games, and I had come in alone. I didn't know anybody on the team, and I think Steph had been there with a friend, and a few others knew each other. And so it was after a game one night when we were taking down the volleyball nets. Steph came out of the men's change room, and he just started asking people how they were doing, and I responded to him, and I said, I'm doing very well. I said, how are you? He says, I'm doing great. And I said, well, that's great to hear. And from there, he went on to tell me that his book was published, and I expressed interest in that. Steph made a joke about something being not anti-psychological. What's the word I'm looking for? Not backwards.
I don't know. Check with the baby. He's got your whole words.
It's got my brain. I swear to God. And I sort of smiled, and I said something about my practicing psychology. He offered the book for me to read, and I was very curious about it. And then the following week, we were all going to get together as a team to go out for drinks, but everybody backed out. Everybody said, oh, I have another commitment, or it's late, or whatever. So Steph and I went out. It was a perfect opportunity to talk about the book, and there was this, it was electrifying. The book was intelligent. The book was
Revolutions.
Yeah, Revolutions. The book was intelligent. The book was insightful. It was very well written. The language, the prose. I thought, wow, here's someone who has great ideas and who can actually communicate those ideas. And that's sort of where my attraction to Steph really was sparked. And then, of course, we chatted that evening over dinner, talking about his book and about a bunch of other things. But it was the intellectual connection, his appreciation for psychology, my appreciation for his thoughts and ideas, and it grew from there.
It's funny, because at this point in my life, I'd been 15 years without being published, but it was all worth it just to have that book on that day.
And what was really interesting for me was that up until that point, I'd never asked a man out. I found that, and this is probably something of interest to men as well. I mean, do women ask men out? I don't know if the younger generation does that.
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah.
Certainly, I had never asked a man out. I had never, it was a very intimidating thing for me to do. But after that evening when Steph and I were sitting talking about his book, I went into work the next day, and I was talking to a colleague of mine, and I just said, wow, it was an amazing night. I mean, he's exciting, he's intelligent, he's verbal, and I didn't know at the time that he was also verbose.
Yeah, I think you said, he has instability and high maintenance written all over him, but he's pretty funny, so I'm weighing all that in the balance. That's a tough call. It really is. And
I had this back and forth with my colleague, and And it was because of that conversation that I actually decided that I was going to just send a quick, like 2-line email to Steph saying, I really enjoyed our conversation last night, would love to do it again. And that's when you responded and asked me out on a real official date kind of thing. But that took a lot of courage for me as well. It would have been, it was impossible until Steph.
I mean, I knew that I was falling in love with Christina when I wanted to make her happy, right? That's one of the key ways that I knew that I was really falling for her, that I wanted to make her dinner, that I wanted to make her laugh, that I wanted her to be happy.
I had a question along a similar line. Obviously, Steph was a little bit farther along the whole, DeFOO thing when he met you. So I was wondering how, or where do your relative positions have to be? I mean, you don't have to be obviously in the exact same place in your life or in the process as your partner, right? But how much of a difference with that is too much of a difference? Is that even quantifiable?
Given that I had counseled people to leave their families, I wasn't opposed to the idea. And so when it came for me time to explore my relationship with my family and really look at it in a way I hadn't before, I was already open to the idea. And again, not that everybody needs to DeFOO, but it wasn't a foreign concept to me. It wasn't something that I had to sort of learn to accept or work through and understand, because there is a lot of opposition to the sort of the DeFOO. But it was something that I advocated. People come from abusive families, don't stay in your family. So we weren't too far apart on that, except Steph had actually gone and done it. And I hadn't really looked at my family close enough to make that decision.
So let me just add something in there as well, because I do get questions, because when Christina believed in this vague higher power, which obviously I recognized quite up front was going to be an unhealthy competition to the growth of my patriarchy. So we'll come back to that laughter later. But it wasn't a committed position that you had, like I go to the Unitarian Church and I pray to the flying spaghetti monster. You hadn't really thought about it, and there was just a default position called, there wasn't a conclusion. It was just, there's a marker there. Like, I don't really know, but it seems like there could be, or whatever.
Yeah, there's an energy in the universe, so to speak.
But the scientific training that you have, which we both share, the scientific training, the empirical training that you had, allowed you to follow those arguments or debates that we had early on about the existence of God. And so it wasn't a committed position of a theist. It was, I've never really thought about it, but I don't know what the capital of Thailand is, right? But I know that there is a capital of Thailand, and you're like, well, I've never really thought about it, and I have this marker. But once we got into the training, then your scientific training, into the debate, the scientific training took over, and it was not dislodging a strongly held position.
Right. Admire, yeah. We yesterday we went to a local private school to look at their facilities and see, and we picked up a brochure, and then we were just misting up, of course, walking around looking at all the little chairs and the happy poems and so on, and we were just going over our sort of lives this morning while we were looking through this brochure, as you're wont to do when you're 11 weeks away from getting the enormously calming influence of a new LCF, but. I was just working out in my head, FDR is less than 3 years old. I mean, counting from the first podcast in November, I think it was November 18th of 2005. It's less than 3 years. It's nothing. It's nothing. And you continue to gain my respect, my admiration, and you continue to impress me every day with what you're achieving. And I think that's hugely important for me, and I think in other relationships as well. I think people get complacent. I think people take each other for granted, and I think a lot of resentment and animosity builds.
Right, and I was also saying just how your business has grown over the past 3 years, because Meadowvale started around the same time as FDR, and what we've been able to build up over the past couple of years is really, really amazing. So I was just saying how much, we were weeping over the kitchen table saying how much we admired each other. And I think that aspect of things, acting in a way that is going to excite someone's admiration, it is a wonderful thing to truly admire someone that you're in love with, because then there's no loss or humiliation or embarrassment or shame in that love at all. It is, a real admiration. And that only comes out of doing things in consultation with your partner that they admire and support and accepting their support, right? The reason that Christina can feel enormously proud of FDR is that I've always tried to give her all the credit that she deserves for helping me with this conversation. People don't see Christina behind the scenes at FDR, right? But, when I have conflicts with people, I run it by her. When I have challenges, when I'm scared of something, when I'm whatever, I'll run it by Christina. I have this amazing sounding board who just gives me fantastic answers. And so I've always tried to be as complimentary as possible to Christina and her support. I mean, it simply would not be possible to have the conversation at the level and success that it's at without her. And in the same way, I help her with her patients to the degree that I can, or help her at the very least with putting furniture together and helping her with the emotional difficulties of being an entrepreneur, having had that experience. And so I think that when you're helping your partner achieve their true potential by helping them overcome their fears, being willing to be vulnerable with them and have them help you, seeing your partner overcome their fears and do these amazingly courageous things it fills my heart with such admiration and such respect for her and appreciation for what she's done. I mean, that kind of stuff, that to me is the real core of growing and sustaining a love relationship. I mean, FDR's focus on the personal, on the familial, on the psychological, on that aspect of things, which I think is the real core of success, because that's what we talk about for the most part now, that has had such a huge influence from Christina that it simply would not be where it is without her. It wouldn't be like, oh, she's been helpful. Like, it wouldn't be what it is without Christina or anywhere even close.
And same is true for my therapy, because of the conversations that Steph and I had, and the podcast that he puts out, and the feedback that he gets from the community. My therapy sessions are very different than they were, 5 or 10 years ago, and because of the quality of the therapy that I provide, my business has grown. God, I'm shocked at what I've been able to accomplish, but I couldn't have done any of that without Steph. And so again, this is an example of where a partnership really is, hugely important and beneficial, and couldn't do it without the respect and the admiration of the other person.